remembering the name. Okay. Tonight's speaker is Don Ireland. Don moved from rainy Pittsburgh to Denver more than 20 years ago, learning quickly about this semi-arid region and the importance of saving water. As president of his homeowners association, Cherry Creek 3 HOA of Denver, he guided the community on several projects that would reduce the neighborhood's water consumption from 36 million to 20 million gallons of water annually. With the encouragement of Audubon Rockies and the Terra Foundation, Don began speaking at HOAs, garden centers, libraries, and statewide forums, including giving a talk at the Ute Chief's Cave near Morrison. He has spoken to thousands of Colorado residents on the subjects of water and planting appropriately in the state. During the past decade, Don has been featured in 2 eco-documentaries. He and Cherry Creek 3 received awards from Colorado WaterWise, Audubon Rockies Habitat Hero program, Plant Select, the Governor's Environmental Leadership Program, and others. Don continues to partner with several organizations to speak at conferences around the region. His wife, Lynn, also with us tonight, is a Colorado master gardener who started and maintained several pollinator-friendly WaterWise gardens at Cherry Creek 3. They've hosted garden tours at their HOA for the Colorado Native Plant Society, Denver Botanic Gardens, and others. Don, I welcome you to give your presentation. If you can keep the microphone close and if you're comfortable not walking around, it helps so that people can see you.
All right, that's not a problem. Will somebody be advancing the slides for me? All right, I'll just say next to you. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, especially those of you at home with your feet up on the couch. Glad to be in front of you no matter where we are tonight. My wife and I drove up here from Denver, and of course you might have heard the sad news on the radio today coming out of Denver. The police department down there arrested Russell Wilson. They charged him with impersonating a quarterback. So, okay, you're awake, good. I talk about birds, I talk about plants, I talk about water, because like so many other things in our lives, they're all interconnected. We can't live one without the other thing. I really got involved with water because I know how expensive it is and it's not getting cheaper. For example, a recent study by Consumer Reports said America's bottled water habit is more than 31 billion, that's with a B, $31 billion plus a year. This afternoon, I read that Coalinga, California will be out of water. The town has less than a 2-month supply of water. So these are things that are not far off from us. Las Vegas, New Mexico, just down I-25 across the border. They've been treading on 30 to 45 days left of water. So it has certainly not been an easy road for so many people. And we're about to face the same thing here. Quite often, we flip on the light switch, the lights come on. When it doesn't, we panic. Someday we're going to open our water faucet and nothing may come out. That may not be true immediately, but at the rate this state is growing, and with the ongoing drought and low snowpack in the mountains, we could be heading for problems in the years ahead. Do I have a solution? No, but I do believe this. As a football guy, I know that you win the game by scoring touchdowns or kicking field goals. You don't make every play hoping to score a 50-yard touchdown pass or to move it 10 yards down the field to kick a field goal. Sometimes it's just 1 inch, 1 foot, 1 yard at a time. And that's the message I'm about to talk to you tonight. This is my neighborhood from the air, Cherry Creek 3 in the south of Denver, just off of I-25. We've got 251 condo homes. And when I first became president, you know how hard it is to get volunteers. People stand in the line. They said, who would like to be president? Everybody else stepped back. I didn't. And I began my run as president that lasted over 10 years. Our water and sewer bills were consuming 42% of our neighborhood because the HOA pays all the water and sewer bills. You may live in your own single family home, but water is just as essential to you. The more water you use, the more you pay. The more water you use, the higher your sewage bill. John? You've no doubt for the past year been reading about what's going on just to the west of us because of lower output on the Colorado River. The 4 lower basin states and New Mexico and parts of Utah, they are in big trouble in places. They are implementing water restrictions just about in every community because the water supply just isn't there. 100 years ago, leaders from the 7 states got together and created the Colorado Water River Compact, and they allocated water to the 7 states. Well, unfortunately, they didn't know, or they didn't really realize that while they did that, they were allocating water during an unusual high period of snowfall and higher river levels. So they were giving out bonuses that wouldn't exist. And as we can see today, the Colorado River is in trouble, and there are many communities in the lower basin states that may not only have not enough water, but there may not be enough water to power the generators there. The old saying in Colorado, it's attributed to Mark Twain so often, it's Colorado where the whiskey is for drinking and where the water is for the fighting. And we are starting to see that now at the federal level and among states. And I suspect that if things do not turn around and our rainfalls and snowfalls do not improve, you're going to hear a lot more about fighting in the next year or 2 to come. John? Colorado Water Plan, which was unveiled in 2015, it's being revised now. The current plan says that with our current rate of growth, especially in the Front Range from Fort Collins down to Pueblo, the way it is currently standing, we stand to leave more than 2.5 million people parched by the year 2050. And when you think of it, that clock is ticking. We're at the door of 2023. So there is not that much time left before we hit 2050. John? So often we turn and think, well, I'm sure somebody in the government or someone out there can work things out and they'll fix things. But my message tonight to all of you is we don't necessarily need to have to wait for a government program. There are things we can do in our own homes. Even if we live in an apartment, there are things we can do to help nature, help our ecosystem, help sequester carbon, help feed our pollinators. There are little steps we can do. One of the great organizations here in the state is Audubon Rockies, with all of the chapters, of course, of which you were a member. They are taking plans and taking steps through their Western Rivers initiative. They are really have gone full scale the past 6 or 7 years with the Habitat Hero program. So they're taking steps. And if you haven't visited their website to see some of those programs, I would suggest that you do so at your earliest convenience. John? Water. We have this horrible obsession with bluegrass. It's not native to our state. It takes way too much water. It's way too expensive to mow it every week. Then you have to aerate it. Then you have to fertilize it. And Denver Water, the biggest water supplier in the States, estimates that of all the water we use in our households per year, half of it is going outside to water the lawns. I don't know where we came up with this theory other than when our ancestors moved from Europe or the lovely English gardens, they come up with this mindset that says, the guy that has the meanest, greenest lawn in town wins. I have friends who have Kentucky bluegrass yards and they don't walk on it or they don't play on it. It's just pretty. Which is so silly and irrational in so many places The only time they walk on it is every week when they're out there on Saturday morning, sweating profusely, mowing the lawn. That's the only time they step on their lawn, right? Just to show you what we did in our neighborhood, and I'll keep referencing that back. We did drop our water consumption by 15 million gallons of water per year between our condos. That's a lot of water. Our neighborhood HOA swimming pool holds about 109,000 gallons worth of water. So in the course of a year, and we've maintained keeping down 15 million gallons from the original 36, we can essentially count our savings as saving 37 of these swimming pools per year, and we've been able to do that, John. If I could see a show of hands, any of you live in an HOA? All right, yes, you're not alone, because 61% of us here in Colorado live in some sort of HOA, whether it's a condo building, single family residential neighborhood. So HOAs are one of the big water consumers across the state. There are different water departments and agencies. I know Fort Collins water folks and folks at Northern Water over in Greeley, they are all implementing various programs to switch Kentucky bluegrass for more native and more xeric low water plantings. The Greeley folks call it life after lawn. So there are a lot of programs out there. And I was fortunate and asked to be part of a set of testimony before the State House and Ag Committee several months ago. And the state did enact a program which will take effect this coming July 1st of 2023, where they will actually give you money if you have your lawn torn out and replace it with something useful. Xeric plants, native plants, plant select plants, plants that are lovely. They will help bolster and sustain our pollinators, and they use a whole lot less water than what Kentucky bluegrass, which is pretty but environmentally essentially useless in my opinion. Wow. There are communities growing up around Colorado. Sterling Ranch down in northwestern Douglas County, they have done smart things like limiting the size of yards that somebody can have. They've installed more neighborhood pocket parks, and they're doing something technologically that's really interesting. At homes, they are installing a dual water meter. One measures the water going into your home that you're using for personal household consumption, cooking, cleaning, bathing, etc. The other side of the meter keeps track of what's going outside onto your lawn or planting beds, and they charge rates accordingly to indoor or outdoor, and you can only guess which rate is much, much higher than the other. Yes, it's the outdoor. Huh? Why are pollinators important? Well, we love our birds. We love our bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, and some of the other pollinators. A friend of mine who's a biologist says that approximately 70% of all the food we consume are directly or indirectly related to the work of pollinators. That is why it's so essential for us to do everything we can in our homes, in our yards, encouraging our friends, neighbors, relatives, and loved ones to do the same thing. We've got to do things to help our pollinators. The other thing I tell people is plant a tree. If you got room, it doesn't have to be a big tree. Plant a shrub. It's things that insects will grow on, and it will help the food web for the various pollinators. So every little step you take, and I mentioned before, if you live in an apartment, put a planter out on your balcony and put something that pollinators like. You know, you're helping them along their pathway in life or their migratory pattern, and you're helping them by giving them some good nourishment. Yes, the dreaded Kentucky bluegrass. Well, the state grass is blue grama. I don't know how many of you knew that. I gave a talk one time in the metro Denver area, and I said, who knows what the state grass is? And a young college student stuck her hand up and she said, marijuana. No, it's blue grama. And It can handle foot traffic, sometimes blue grama and also buffalo grass. They grow in clumps. One of the newer things on the horizon, developed by a friend of mine, Kelly Grummins, over in Lakewood, is called dogtooth grass. It's for sunny areas. We have several patches of it in our neighborhood. I'll show you a picture of that soon. We mow it once, maybe twice a summer, and water a little at the beginning of each season. We don't water it after that. It essentially grows. It is lush emerald green in the heat of July and August, when Kentucky bluegrass, a cold season grass, tends to fade and turn brown. This is lush emerald green during those hot months. And on your bare feet, the dogtooth grass is softer on your bare feet than what your Kentucky bluegrass is. So because we have such smart people here at Fort Collins at Colorado State University, they have lists of things through their extension service, appropriate trees, appropriate shrubs, things that will grow here with our chaotic weather. You know, we're coming up on that soon. It's 70 one day and 70 the next day. There are lots of plants they recommend that come out of, that can be planted here and should make it through the toughest of winter. Finally, we're starting to get a lot of HOAs and neighborhoods involved around the state. They're realizing these water bills aren't sustainable, so we're going to get rid of bluegrass on driving lane medians and on those little Hades strips between the sidewalk curb and the sidewalk, and they're replacing them with more appropriate Colorado style landscape, as I call it. That's a good thing for us. Technology, one of the blessings of today is we live in a very high-tech era that's only going to get better. There are smart controllers. There are smart sprinkler heads. Instead of the old traditional pop-up heads, there are the MP3 rotor heads that most manufacturers sell. Many of the water districts around here will give you a rebate for replacing your old heads with the new heads. They use about 40% of the water that a standard pop-up head uses. How many of you have an irrigation control box at your house for your yard? There's something on there called cycle and soak. So instead of letting the sprinkler system run for 20 straight minutes and it starts running onto the sidewalk and onto the driveway and the street, which do not need water, this will, at your instructions, maybe water 3 to 5 minutes, shut off for maybe an hour, let it soak in, do the next 5 minutes. Shut off for an hour. It will take a longer cycle, but in the end, you'll give your plants the water they need, and it won't be running into the street. Friends of ours over at Boulder, also at Resource Central, they offer every year fall and spring kits called Garden in the Box. This is for people like me. It's like paint by number. They give you a box full of plants and a couple of sketches of plant A goes here, plant B goes there, and that way the taller ones grow in the back and it's easy. And a lot of the water companies around here offer discounts if you purchase a Garden in the Box from them. I forget how many tens of thousands they have sold here in the Front Range in the past. It'll be their 10th anniversary in 2023. So they're really doing their job to help make it easy. So if you have a little corner of the side of your house and you're tired of mowing it, you can pull that out and install a Garden in the Box. You'll be helping the pollinators. It's much lovelier to look at than another 3x3 or 10x10 square foot piece of Kentucky bluegrass. Again, going back to my HOA, John, we did a lot of retrofitting. We talked to our neighbors who all own their homes. We talked them into, hey, help us save money. It'll help prevent your HOA monthly dues from going out. We got more than 400 toilets replaced voluntarily by those residents. They went from the old 3.5 gallon per flush models now to a 1.28. Now there are even more efficient models that are, thanks to technology, use a gallon or even less. And I'll give you a good flush, No, you don't have to flush them twice. One flush will generally do, and you're saving water, which will also save you money on your sewage bill. And I mentioned some of the other things, so let's move on to our next slide. Why is talking about water important in planting? Well, statistics show that when people are informed about water, they think more about it, and they use 7.8% less. So if you say, I get a glass and use it, fill it and use it for brushing my teeth instead of letting the faucet run. If you wait until your dishwasher is full before you run it. Same thing with your laundry machine. If you think about what you're doing and wait instead of throwing one t-shirt in your washing machine and running a load, you could save water. And again, you're helping not pull water out of the local water system, which comes from our various rivers. So if you think a little bit more about what you're doing, you can help make that ripple effect. Again, going back to football, it might be an inch, but those inches add up to winning plays in the end. We already mentioned that by 2050, we could be in big trouble here in this state if the current drought-like conditions persist. And throughout the nation, we're starting to see problems. For example, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 20% of their residents are in default on their monthly water bills. Water is getting so expensive in many places. Fortunately, here on the Front Range, our water is still relatively cheap compared to other areas, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Gasoline goes up and down, but when water goes up, it never comes down. Huh? Good things to do, you can check with your water authority to see what kind of rebates they offer. If they offer the turf for low water plants, switch off things. There's also other technologies. Flume is a very interesting device. If you pay for your own water, the Flume device is usually on sale at their website. It attaches to your water meter, it straps to it. You plug in a module that inside your home that connects with your Wi-Fi, and it will give you on a phone app or tablet app, every 5 seconds, it'll give you a compiled reading of what your water is doing. This can be useful in many ways. You can tell if you have a potential leak. If you're on vacation out of state, you can tell if a burglar has broken in, stolen stuff, and decided to stop and take a shower. But it can really help you. And then you get quarterly and annual reports. So again, as you see what you're using, you can diagnose what you're using and perhaps make wiser steps on how to lower your water consumption. And I talk to friends and neighbors about, hey, what are you doing with your water? Are you, being wise about it? Or you're setting your sprinklers night? Yeah, my friends try to avoid me, but that happens, John. And the next one. I should mention there are many towns and cities in Colorado who are starting to adopt things for new developments. They are going to base what the water line tap-in fee is from the street based on not only the size of your yard, but what you're planning to plant in it. If you're going with full Kentucky bluegrass, you get a much bigger tap, and the fee for it is, I believe, triple or higher what it is for if you're planting a water-wise, more appropriate Colorado type landscape. Okay, John. Why does outdoor planting matter? For all those reasons I discussed before, but a lot of developers, let's face it, they're building homes, they're in it to make a buck. They build the place, they want to keep their profits at a maximum. So what do? They roll out the Kentucky bluegrass sod, stick in a couple little cheap junipers, and they're out of time with all the money. And guess who gets to feel the pain of that 5, 10, 15, 20 years later? Yes, future homeowner. So they are now trying to work with the various architectural groups and landscape planners to say, wait, whoa, stop. We're in Colorado. We're developing a water problem here. We've got to put the right things in these yards. No more with the cheap, quick, let's get out of here quick, maximize profit way of thinking. Here's my neighborhood. Before we retrofitted a lot of landscapes in front of our 251 condo units, you can see that lovely 1960s, 1965 planting motif where the fashion of the day was cheap junipers and lava rock. When we started retrofitting our neighborhood, I would call different contractors, say, would you like lava rock? Just come and pick it up for free. And I got laughed at a lot, had no takers. On the right is what happens when you take out some of that useless landscaping and put in things that are more WaterWise and much more friendlier to pollinators. John? Ah, yes, the 1960s on the left, the era of the poodle juniper bush. Isn't that lovely? Whereas on the right, more recent years, those are tour members from one of the garden tours we had come through our neighborhood, and instead of seeing what you see on the left, they got to see a variety of low water plants and pollinator friendly plants on the right. John? All right, and I have already mentioned these things, so I tell people I'm not totally against bluegrass. If you're walking on it, if you got little kids or grandkids and they want to play on it, it's appropriate, but not the whole yard and everything on the side. That's why I tell people we've really got to think better, and it's time to kiss our grass goodbye. John? We took areas in our neighborhood that were all Kentucky bluegrass with the tree. Well, we decided to get rid of them, put in many more Colorado natives and low water plants. And you can see the difference of that same section 1 year versus a couple years later. I think you'll agree with me. The one on the right looks so much better. Next one, John. I want to talk about Plant Select. It is a cooperative agreement between Colorado State University, Denver Botanic Gardens, and many of the growers, horticulturalists, and people in the green industry throughout the Front Range and state. This program is in its 25th year this year. They have more than 160 types of plants recommended, everything from ground covers to flowers to shrubs to trees, and the previously mentioned dogtuft grass. The dogtuft grass is there on the left-hand side photo. Again, this was taken during the middle of the heat of summer. You can see it's a lush emerald green. It essentially gets no water and is mowed usually twice a year. And I invite people on the left side of the sidewalk is Kentucky bluegrass. And I tell people, take off your shoes, step on the Kentucky bluegrass, then step on the other side. And they are amazed by the difference. Oh yes, why is it called dogtuft grass? One of the problems with Kentucky bluegrass is if you have little Fifi or Fido or whatever your dog's name is, and he or she goes out and does a little tinkle on the grass, you get a big brown spot. Dogtuft is because it is resistant to that type of urine bleaching of the grass. So that's why it is called dogtuft. John? Once again, we did many of the things I've already previously discussed, replacing lava rock beds and bluegrass beds with more appropriate plants. I talk about Plant Select plants because they keep introducing new ones that work. Many of them are Colorado natives, more than 80 of them. Audubon Rockies on their website list a lot of native Front Range plants. So you can take your pick. It doesn't matter what you pick, in my opinion. Just do something and get rid of the bluegrass. Another thing we did, some of those areas we knew nobody was doing anything in the yard. So we tore it up. And next, we built a community garden. It has been around for a dozen years now. People come there every year. They have many of them have their same plots. Instead of just useless bluegrass that gets sprinkled and maintained, they will use a hose to hand water, which uses less water. And they're producing edibles. And some people were planting some flowers in there, which are beneficial to the pollinator. So, it's a better use of the land. John? The pride and joy that I just swell up when I talk about my wife's accomplishment. This is the end of our condo building. We're not in the unit right at the end, but we talked the HOA before I became president into getting rid of junipers, which were in that brown area, and the bluegrass. And we said, let's give Lynn a chance to change it. And she did, and within a couple of years, here's the result. You can see, isn't that a tremendous difference? And that's when we met the folks from Audubon Rockies, and they were just starting the Habitat Hero program, and we became the first HOA in Colorado to receive that certification. And we're still thrilled about it and have a sign. And I tell people, hey, if we can do it, I have no horticultural background. I have no training as a gardener. But if people like us can do it, you can do it too. I really believe that, John. And as John mentioned, we've received so many awards over the years, it's almost embarrassing, but I'm proud of the fact that we at least tried and were able to begin to show other people around the front page of what's possible. And again, whether you live in an apartment with a balcony terrace or your own single family home or in a condo association, it's possible for things to change. My friend Allison Halloran, who's over at the Audubon Rockies, she always has said in some of the presentations I've heard her speak that you are what hope looks like to a bird. And I really, really believe that without us as humans doing the right things, we're going to lose more birds, more pollinating species. So if we take corrective action now, even if it's a 3 foot by 3 square foot piece of land and your neighbor does it and your friends do it, slowly but surely we can turn around this massive destruction of our land and the over proliferation of bluegrass and do things that can help our birds, bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. And why do I do it? Well, those two delightful little darlings there on the left are my grandson Mason and his sister Juliet. Well, they're a couple years older now, they're 5 and 3. But they live here in Denver. And I won't be here probably when they're 40 years old. I don't know where I'm going, but I won't be here. And I want to leave something for them. And I'm sure so many of you have children or grandchildren or people you care about who are much younger, who will last longer than we will. And it's important to do these little things today to make those changes so that we leave something for them for the future. It's been said that our generation gave the world things like the personal computer, the cell phone, the internet. Now with the data available and the places like Denver Botanic Gardens and Colorado State University being able to do gene sequencing on plants and help enhance some of our plants. And we've learned of dangers of some of the pesticides that people have used in decades or generations gone by. Now we have the technology to show us and support data that we have better systems available. And my hope is that the children of today, as they're growing up and go to college, will take advantage of that technology and create and invent new things that can help us with air purification. Trees will help do that, but there may be other things they can do to help improve our environment. So we're not heading for some sort of ecological disaster. So, my friends at Colorado WaterWise, many of you get your water from places that are affiliated with them and Northern Water and different water agencies. Their message is Colorado water, live like you love it. And it is so true. I mean that, it is something we need to think about for us, for our children, for our neighborhoods, and most of all for our families who are going to follow in our footsteps. We're gone. Thank you for having me tonight, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions. Most of them will be answered by, I don't know, but for any of you at home, be happy to elaborate on anything that I have said so far.
I'm not going to get blank. You can stay up here.
Okay.
I would just say, when we get questions in the room, could I ask you to repeat the question?
Yes, I will repeat any question.
And look over to this gentleman with the baseball cap to
All
see
right.
if we have online questions. I will say this. If you are attending by Zoom and you have a question for Don, you can type it into the chat window, or you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And if you raise your hand, we'll call on you and let you unmute.
That sounds like a deal. I still contend you should have offered to give away a Tesla to anybody who showed up to the meeting and then given them the Hot Wheels equivalent, you know, you didn't have to say it was the real thing.
All right, questions for them?
Yes, sir.
Any thoughts on rain barrels?
Any thoughts on rain barrels? Yes, I was part of the people who supported rain barrels. It took a couple of years for the state to finally adopt them. You could have 2 55-gallon rain barrels. The important thing is at the end of the season to empty them out and maintain them so that they're good and viable. Yeah, it's great. It's free water. Where else, except when it rains or snows, can we get free water? We have to pay for all the rest of the water we use. So yeah, I'm all in favor of rain barrels wherever and whenever we can. I think somebody else had their hand up. Okay, online.
A comment online.
Yes.
A great book on the subject is Nature's Best Hope by Douglas W. Talbot.
Yes, Nature's Great Hope by Douglas W. Talbot. Doug Talbot, Dr. Talbot from the University of Delaware. I have met him several times and have taken a lot of his teachings, which Audubon Rockies has been a great advocate for him. I've talked with him when he has spoken at Denver Botanic Gardens. Yeah, he's all about, let's take all of our yards and turn them into America's front yard, backyard national park, because we have enough bluegrass lawns in this nation that if we got rid of the bluegrass and planted more appropriate things, we would have a combined acreage greater than our national parks. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of Doug Talbot's.
That was called, it was Lisa Brown here in the comments. He stresses also planting native plants so that you have an actual improvement over the turf. Because if you do non-native, it's just the same.
Well, I agree with most of that in planting natives, but I also figured, you know, we can't all eat steak and salad once in a while. You have to have a cupcake. At least I do. But a lot of the plants recommended by Plant Select, again, half of them are natives. Some of the others, like some of the Delosperma, the ice plants, and a few of the penstemons, and that may not be native to Colorado, but they don't hurt. They're not like the Bartlett pear trees, which have no value to our birds and bees. Even the dog-tough grass, the bees love it in the springtime when it has its little blossoms for those few short weeks. So yes, I'm all for both. I'm not a purist on one or the other. I say let's try everything and get the best we can to work in the most efficient way we can.
In our native grass lawn,
Yes.
favoring cytoxgrama, woodgrama, and slender wheatgrass, and western wheatgrass. But in that development, there is broad spread pre-planting brome, which is native, but we're trying to, I've been fighting, trying to displace the brome to favor the others. Have you had any strategies with how to do that?
Well, a strategy for replacing some of the plants you might not like for the native grasses you described is keep hammering at the point. Sometimes the squeaky wheel does get the grease. If you try to help convince other neighbors why this is a better way to go than what's existing. One thing about HOAs, if you live in an HOA neighborhood, boy, there's a lot of pig-headed, stubborn, we've always done things this way type of leaders. And sometimes it's like moving the mountain or moving the rock to convince them. But I think a lot of them are now, as they keep hearing it in the media, from social media, from various groups like this and others, that wheel was starting to slowly turn to see that there are better alternatives than just what somebody put there years ago.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Everybody in the development has grown.
Okay.
So I can not have to defend against the neighbors, but just in our lawn, trying to displace the brome and favor the others. Is there any strategy?
That's a toughie. It's like, I wish we could find a cure for bindweed. If we could grow plants the way we grow bindweed.
We defeat the.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have tried extensive pulling of
yeah,
brome, but it's a really bad. Well, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
You've worked with CSU Extension and just tried to ask them what to do, the experts?
Yeah.
No, I've gotten
advice
on native grass.
Yeah, I would recommend maybe checking out your local CSU Extension Service here in Larimer County, and they may have some things or better suggestions, because even though we all live in the Front Range, it's a little different in Pueblo than what it is in Fort Collins or in Denver. In fact, I'm hearing a lot of gardeners these days talking about, as they're thinking about plants for the next few years, they want to try more things that are more common in New Mexico, because as the heat continues up the Front Range each summer, they may be more appropriate plants, although they may not be true Colorado natives either. So, yes, sir.
We have a couple in the chat.
All right.
One from Jesse. Do you have any types of shrubs you would recommend that are pollinator attractors?
Shrubs that are pollinator attractors. Well, rabbit brush would be one. I guess I could think of that as a shrub. Lynn plants a lot of the hyssops. They're not quite a shrub, but they certainly do grow or do attract so many hummingbirds. It's fun. I like to hide around the corner fence and watch the hummingbirds in the morning and in the night. But there are several pollinator-friendly shrubs. And again, I'd recommend that you go to the list available at the Audubon Rockies on their list of recommendations. But there are a lot. Or you can go to plantselect.org and you can put in what you're looking for, like type of plant, what facing of the sun, and which are most pollinator friendly. But there are a number of them out there.
Any other questions from Lisa? How can we get developers to stop using turf in their new developments?
Well, that is one of the things that some of the cities are addressing. The Association of Landscapers are beginning to address also. Plant Select is holds each year a couple of free classes for those who are into landscape design, to show them the benefits of do this. You're going to give yourself a better name, because any idiot can just roll out the Kentucky bluegrass, to give them the reasoning behind why you want to do a better job. And as more and more cities get involved, and think of this, the city of Aspen, way up in the mountains, they get the snow, they get the water. They have now adopted ordinances that require little or no bluegrass in favor of native and low water things. So you figure those folks got the water, and they're even thinking of doing it. So I think more and more, you've probably heard on the news recently, Aurora essentially is banning future bluegrass, and also golf courses if they don't already have the water for it. So the movement is on. It's been slow and a long time in coming, but boy, it's picking up and gaining some momentum.
Don, have you kept track of how any other expenses that the HOA was responsible for might have changed as you're making these? I don't know if it's like maintenance costs or
Well, there
fertilizer,
are,
pesticide,
well,
mowing?
there was, first of all, our water and sewer costs. And by 2019, our water and sewer bills were still lower than in 2008, 2009. That's how much water we saved and were able to use for other programs, everything from fence painting to driveway repairs, etc. But we spent less, and we worked with our landscapers to say, hey, look, during the heat of summer, you don't need to mow the Kentucky bluegrass every single week, because in the heat of July and August, it's not growing, it's turning brown. So we eliminated that to save a little bit of money. You do have to spend money on any living outdoor thing, but in real sense in dollars, there are studies that show that you spend a bit less maintaining those type of plants than the every week, the blow mowing go lawn care guys who they know what a sprinkler head is and how to mow the lawn, but they couldn't tell a rose tree from a pine tree or a rose bush from a pine tree. So, yeah, and as more and more stress and emphasis is placed on landscapers, I think we're going to see a whole new generation of landscapers springing up, because mowing the grass isn't just going to cut it anymore as we move further into the future. Yes, sir.
As trying to save water, it's an adaptive process, and I'm sure you know this, but I just wonder if, are you continuing to track where water usage is in the HOA, still looking for things, and what is now the big expense for water now that you've cut so much?
Well, the question was, for those of you at home, about tracking water and expenses. Believe it or not, I'm a little bit of a water geek, and I have spreadsheets dating back 15 years now of what our monthly water consumption was in terms of hundreds of thousands or millions of gallons, what the price for that was, and also what the sewage cost was. So yes, when you're in a neighborhood of 251 homes and there's no water meter, all you could do is try to put out information and encourage people to do the right thing. Are there knuckleheads out there? Yeah. You got teenage princesses who think that a shower must be 30 minutes in length or longer, because they're not paying the water bill. But it's more of an awareness, especially with the parents, that can help curb that water use. I mean, had they not done the cheap thing in the mid-60s when they built our neighborhoods, everybody would have had their own meter. And baby, when you're paying for your own water, you think a whole lot more about what you're using every month than if it's a community-wide free-for-all. So, so it's those types of things. And as more and more technologies have come online, low water shower heads, faucet aerators, low flow toilets, Energy Star dishwashing machines and laundry machines. And some of the water providers will give you rebates on those. And there have even been HOAs that have rebates on them. A related answer to that is, I'm now becoming aware of HOAs in the Front Range who, in a contract with their landscape people, which are usually outside companies, they have established, here's what we use for water. If we go over that for our lawn areas, which are metered, you pay the difference. Boy, does that get them thinking about, if it comes out of my pocket, they're going to be a lot more thrifty and not just let faucets open and run and irrigate the sidewalks, driveways, and things that don't need irrigated.
Anything online?
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate coming here and being with you tonight.
Thank you.